Vojier, Monapo, Avshen, warm greetings. Welcome to today's podcast of Izuka. Today's session will be a bit more of a relaxed chat. I want to take some time to reflect on the past few episodes and set the stage as we prepare for the new season, where we'll hopefully bring guests onto the show. Pretty soon. I think it's valuable to unpack some of the conversations we've had here. And today feels like the perfect moment to do just that. Um, this podcast is very much a work in progress. We are shaping it as we go. And I'm learning so much along the way. And it's been such an honor and a privilege to share what I'm discovering with all of you, and what I've been learning. I've also had some people ask me what inspired me to start this podcast, so I thought I'll take a moment to share a bit about our journey to Izuka. Um, for me, it all comes down to living as mindfully and accountably as I can. Um, the chi in Igbo culture is a personal spiritual guardian and divine essence, which shapes destiny, connects us to our ancestral roots, and calls us to live authentically and purposefully in alignment with our soul's deepest truth. And the concept of chi finds echoes in other African cultures, such as the Chichewa Muzimu, the Akan Kra, the Yoruba Ori, the Zulu Idlozi, and the Dagara Sukla. And in light of Chi, I've come to understand that I want to live as mindfully and accountably as I can. My Chi, or my personal spirit and guide, reminds me that I am here for a purpose, and that purpose demands my full presence and responsibility. James Hollis, a Jungian psychologist, speaks of how we are flung from the amniotic sea into this life, tied to matter, gravity, and mortality. Yet a fire burns within each of us, and that fire, I believe, is the spark of my chi, urging me forward, even when fear tries to hold me back. When I first considered starting this podcast, my chi whispered its approval, but my human fears roared louder. Um, I feared being misunderstood, ridiculed, or failing altogether. And those close to me know I had been speaking of this dream for years, or of starting this podcast for years. Yet I hesitated, I rationalized, and deflected. And in those moments of delay, it felt as though I was turning my back on my own soul, on the very essence of my chi. Fear is unavoidable, yes, but I've realized I cannot let it dictate my life. And the longer I postponed, the more my soul ached and protested. I kid you not. And I knew I could no longer ignore what my psyche or my chi was demanding of me. Hollis also speaks of choosing the path of enlargement, the path our souls calls us to take. And this resonated deeply with me. For my chi is not content with smallness or safety. It calls me to something larger, to a life that is more than fitting in, being successful, or being accepted by everyone. My chi asks me, what is your life about really? It reminds me that I am more than an economic animal, more than a social token, more than a creature driven by daily needs. And all these things are necessary. Trust me, I know. Especially considering we exist in this, right? Um, but also, I'm a soul in a world of flesh, a spirit navigating the decay of matter. And my chi challenges me to ask, what does it mean to be here? To what am I called? To what am I called? What values, traits, and capacities must I embody? And these questions are not comfortable, but they are necessary. They pull me out of the trivial and reframe my frustrations and disappointments. They call me to step into something larger than security, comfort, or acceptance. Yeah. Um, my chi urges me to serve life more than safety, growth, more than stasis, and the soul more than the anxious, distracted self. And in doing so, I feel alive, not just going through the motions, but truly living, stretching into the emergent future, one developmental stage at a time. It is the path my chi has set before me, and I choose to walk in it, even when it feels uncertain. For in serving my chi, I serve the deepest part of myself, and in turn, the larger purpose of life itself. For me, Izuka has been that path of enlargement, and this podcast has felt like that fire or the thing that wanted expression through me. And yeah, and so that's how Izuka was born, or that's how we're here. And now we are going to look at, we are going to reflect on the past episodes. And we will start with Africa's transition from pre-colonial to colonial eras, highlighting the undercurrents of entanglement or economic, cultural, and political that have shaped the flow of goods, people, and ideas, often in ways that clash with Africa's intrinsic values, sovereignty, and long-term interests. These these entanglements reveal a complex legacy of disruption and resilience, right? Because we do need to acknowledge the resilience of Africans. And colonial systems imposed foreign structures of governance, trade, and social organization, dismantling indigenous systems that had sustained communities for centuries. And the extraction of resources, redrawing of borders, and the imposition of foreign ideologies created distance from ourselves, yeah, created dependence and inequalities that persist today. And it follows that many of our current systems are not designed for us to thrive. They were imposed on us violently. And as they fracture, they reveal both vulnerabilities and opportunities. Um, Living in Africa, I'm acutely aware of the long-standing crises that have shaped our continent. And even now, as norms shift yet again, we are seeing cracks in education, health, mental health systems, systems that were never designed with our well-being in mind. Um, and at this point, most of us have come to recognize that our society is built on borrowed foundations, foundations that, as we've discussed in the past, are unsustainable. They're just not built for us. And once we had systems rooted in community and shared values that could support and accommodate everyone. Today, it feels as though only a select few can thrive within this current structure, a structure that was never designed to serve the majority. And I think real change won't come from political parties. Instead, I genuinely think it must come from us. We need to look to one another and to the wisdom of our histories for the way forward. Um, we also considered death, grief, and healing as another example. As we discussed in a previous episode, many indigenous practices surrounding grief were demonized and discarded. Um, Yet these practices were deeply rooted in community and well being, right? And without them, we are left to navigate life altering events on our own, and a lot of the times with inadequate tools, forcing us to patch things up and carry on when we are not ready and have not gone through the proper healing processes. Yeah. And so moving forward, I want us to have conversations about how we can build systems that help us live well, um, that are based on the well being of societies, systems that honor where we are without discarding the valuable aspects of our past. How do we rebuild communities that have been fractured? How do we create institutions, economies, and structures that foster well being? I also recognize that this is not work we can do alone. Um, and these are the questions that drive me, that have fueled this podcast, and that I believe are essential for our collective growth and healing. The work is not easy, but it is necessary. And it begins with acknowledging the past, understanding the present, and daring to imagine a future that honors who we are and what we can become. Yeah. As Bayo Akomolafe, who has been a profound influence and teacher for me, often says, sometimes the way we try to solve the problem is part of the problem. He reminds us to acknowledge the otherworldly forces at play and to lean into indigenous cosmologies, which offer wisdom beyond the material and the immediate. Yeah, I believe we must approach this work in community, embracing partial answers and being okay with not fully knowing. And as we reimagine the future, we need to leave room for confusion, for growth, and for co creation. If you feel called to be part of this conversation, or if you know someone who is eager to co-create and reimagine and remake with us, please reach out. I will leave my email address in the description box. So yeah, please reach out and suggest our podcast to people who you think will be interested. Share it. Let's come together, because it's only in sharing and learning and conversing, and even getting lost together, that we can truly grow and transform. And to close, I want to share a paragraph from Akomolafe that has deeply resonated with me. Every time I read these words, they land in a new way, and I hope that they speak to you as well. Um, May this decade bring more than just solutions, more than just a future. May it bring words we don't know yet and temporalities we have not yet inhabited. May we be slower than speed could calculate and swifter than the pull of gravity of words can incarcerate. And may we be visited so thoroughly and met in wild places so overwhelmingly that we are left undone, ready for composting, ready for the impossible. Welcome to the decade of the fugitive. Let these words guide us as we step into the unknown, ready to be undone, ready to be composted, and ready to embrace the impossible. Together, let's create a future that honors our past, nurtures our present, and opens us to the possibilities we have yet to imagine. Thank you for being here. Let us journey together. Ashe.